know that most of what you've seen, read, or heard about Billy the Kid is untrue? My name is Gail Cooper. I'm a medical doctor and forensic psychiatrist. My specialty is murder case consultation for the defense. For 20 years, I've used my expertise to uncover the real Billy the Kid. Researching over 40,000 pages of archival documents and books, I've written the revisionist history. It's shocking, it's liberating, and I've written books demolishing the hoaxes, hijacking the history. My talks will share with you what I've found. Cover-ups, misinformation, and fakery, to use Old West lingo, will bite the dust. This talk begins the expose of W.C. Jameson's and Frederick Bean's 1998 Brushy Bill backing book, The Return of the Outlaw Billy the Kid. The information is from my book, Cracking the Billy the Kid Imposter Hoax of Brushy Bill Roberts. Country music singer William Carl W.C. Jameson and novelist Frederick Bean recycled the 1950s Brushy Bill imposter hoax in their 1998 book titled The Return of the Outlaw Billy the Kid. They'd been converted by that hoax's 1955 book, Alias Billy the Kid. It was the product of delusional farm laborer Brushy Bill Roberts, hoax mastermind and car parts salesman William V. Morrison, and its author, English teacher, and wannabe historian C.L. Sonneshan. They were additionally encouraged by Sonneshan himself. Jameson and Bean were taken in by Brushy's special knowledge scams. The original hoax's readers had been disadvantaged by limited history books, but Jameson and Bean, writing at the end of the 20th century, had no excuse for obliviousness except avoiding their day's many scholarly texts. Instead, from the start of the return of the outlaw Billy the Kid, one can see Jameson's and Bean's reliance on their idolized charlatans, Morrison and Sonneshan. They even quote Sonneshan's martyr-like histrionics that he'd been vilified for promoting Brushy Bill, but had gotten, quote, never one shred of evidence to disprove Robert's claim. Sonneshan was hiding that real history demolished Brushy's Billy the Kid's pseudo-memories, and he was hiding that in 1987, mentally disabled Brushy's niece and part-time caretaker, Geneva Roberts Pittman, revealed his birth on August 26, 1879, making him under 2 at Billy Bonney's fatal shooting. Deception begins on the cover of The Return of the Outlaw Billy the Kid. It's Billy Bonney's tintype, as if he's the subject of their book, and real Billy didn't even consider himself to be an outlaw. The prologue presents the hoax's fictions that the corpse wasn't Billy the Kid's, that Pat Garrett wrongly thought that he shot him, that Deputy John W. Poe claimed Garrett, quote, shot the wrong man, and that Garrett ordered Deputies Poe and McKinney to guard the bedroom door to prevent viewing of the body. And Brushy's failed 1950 gubernatorial pardon hearing is accused of hiding compelling evidence that he was Billy the Kid. In reality, the coroner's jury report of William Bonney, plus multiple other identifications of his body, proved he was Garrett's July 14, 1881 victim. The Deputy Poe quote is selectively lifted from his 1933 book, The Death of Billy the Kid. Poe actually made clear that he didn't know Billy and didn't expect his coming to the Maxwell house, but he was immediately convinced that Billy was the victim by Garrett, Peter Maxwell, and Fort Sumner's townspeople. And Garrett didn't hide Billy's body. As Poe wrote, it was given to townspeople for his wake that night at Fort Sumner's carpenter shop. And Brushy failed his pardon hearing because of his fatal and absurd errors. Additionally, Morrison's so-called evidence packet, ignored at the hearing, was just historical Billy the Kid documents, his fake search for the coroner's jury report, and 2 fake affidavits that Brushy was Billy. Jameson and Bean merely proved that they relied on Brushy, Morrison, and Sonneshan. The book's introduction inflates the hoax. Jameson and Bean claimed that Brushy knew, quote, more than most scholars. In reality, as shown in Talks 57 to 75, Brushy had no special knowledge whatsoever. He merely parroted sources as revealed by his repeating their telltale errors, and he confabulated wrongly when his sources ran out. And for lack of sources, he was unaware of all intimate specifics of real Billy's life or his freedom-fighting cause. So Brushy missed Billy's birth name of McCarty, his Silver City jailing, his biculturalism and fluency in Spanish, his Arizona self-defense killing of Frank Windy Cahill, his creating the alias Billy Bonney in 1877, his Penasco River Ranch, gifted to him by employer John Tunstall, his deputizing to arrest Tunstall's murderers, his conversion to political zealot in the anti-Santa Fe Ring regulators, the regulators' killing of ring-eyed Sheriff Brady and Deputy Hinman to prevent their murder of Alexander McSween, his deposition to a federal investigator on Tunstall's murder, his outrage at the Ring's retaliative massacre of Hispanic residents of San Patricio for backing the regulators, the 6-day freedom fight of the Lincoln County War, his post-war guerrilla rustling from ringites, specifics of his pardon bargain with Governor Lew Wallace, his denial of being an outlaw, his Dudley Court of Inquiry testimony about white soldiers firing at those escaping the burning McSween house, his tracking by the Secret Service with its lost second pardon chance, his solitary confinement in the Santa Fe jail, the specifics of his Messiah hanging trials, his articulate press interviews about his unjust hanging sentence, his likely accomplice in his Lincoln County Courthouse jail escape, and his young lover, Paulita Maxwell, for whom he risked death to return to Fort Sumner. So missed is Billy's cause and why he inspired contemporaries. Left for the Brushy hoax was just riding on Billy's name without even knowing why he deserved fame. A digression is in order here about Brushy's imagined Billy the Kid persona as portrayed in Alias Billy the Kid. It's all wrong. And unaware, Jameson and Bean merely copied it. The hoax just repeated outlaw myth propaganda by Lew Wallace and the Santa Fe Ring, along with the hated Billy the Kid moniker created by these enemies in 1879 to vilify Billy Bonney. So, for his fiction, Brushy, with his uncouth grammar, said he was called Billy the Kid from childhood, was a gang-leading outlaw who murdered in a personal vendetta against Tunstall's killers, and fanned his 2 six-shooters like a movie cowboy, was in a 3-day fight in Lincoln for no apparent reason, and blamed defeat with his vile racism on shooting N-word Fort Stanton troops, had self-pity that Governor Wallace refused his pardon bid, was pursued and captured by Pat Garrett for murdering Jim Carlisle, was jailed in Santa Fe where he had someone write his letters to Lew Wallace because he was illiterate, had an unfair Messiah trial because Garrett wouldn't get him defense witnesses, escaped Lincoln's courthouse jail by slipping handcuffs over his little hands, and went to Fort Sumner hoping to straighten things out with Garrett. As to the shooting there, Brushy had July 14, 1881's night so dark that his fictional buddy, Billy Barlow, was killed accidentally as Billy the Kid instead of him on the Maxwell house's back porch. The killers were Garrett's unnamed posse men, who also wounded him, leaving scars, and his flight was assisted by his lover, Celso Gutierrez. After that, he aimlessly wandered the West for the rest of his life, hooking up with big-name outlaws, big-name Wild West shows, being a lawman like a Pinkerton detective, or leaving the country for ranching or warring in Mexico, South America, Cuba, and Scotland. Then he met William V. Morrison and wanted help getting pardoned as Billy the Kid so he could stop worrying about being hanged. The point is that Brushy's fake Billy the Kid is mean, racist, creepy, selfish, stupid, self-pitying, and boring. If real Billy was like that, he would have been forgotten as just another unsavory frontier bad man. We even know real Billy's response to such fakery. In his December 12, 1880 letter to Governor Lew Wallace, he wrote, "I noticed in the Las Vegas Gazette a piece which stated that Billy the Kid, the name by which I am known in the country, was the captain of a band of outlaws. There is no such organization in existence." So the gentleman must have drawn very heavily on his imagination. Jameson's and Bean's introduction also fakes salesman Morrison as a graduate lawyer and attorney. In fact, they knew he wasn't. Jameson, in his 2012 book, Billy the Kid, The Lost Interviews, stated that on March 8, 1985, that's 13 years before the return of the outlaw Billy the Kid, he interviewed dead Morrison's daughter, who called him a paralegal from LaSalle Mail Order College in Chicago, Illinois. So in that book, Jameson called him a glorified law clerk while still hiding his being a car parts and copier machine salesman, and that his so-called law work was as a bankruptcy liquidator, meaning he just sold or liquidated a bankrupt person's assets to pay their creditors. Jameson and Bean's Shadows of Doubt chapter laid out their claims. Certain that Brushy was Billy, they believed conspiracies hid his special knowledge. They made up that he, quote, stunned researchers by his knowledge, looked identical to Billy, had his scars, and his genealogy proved the source of the name Bonnie. In reality, proved only is that Jameson and Bean had swallowed the Brushy hoax, hook, line, and sinker. Next comes a strange chapter titled The Accepted History of Billy the Kid by the so-called Fraternity of Historians. But it's not. It's Jameson's and Bean's chaos of errors, some even by Brushy. Their bibliography lists books by major historians like William Kelleher, Frederick Nolan, Robert Utley, and Leon Metz, which were obviously shunned. And Jerry Weddell's key 1993 book on Billy's early adolescence titled Antrim Was My Stepfather's Name, is missing. I presented the real history in talks 1 to 40, and I'm mystified as to what Jameson and Bean thought they were accomplishing in the chapter. The Start denies Billy Bonney's New York City birth because Brushy claimed Buffalo Gap, Texas, though Jameson and Bean hide that it came from people Billy likely told: Ash Upson, a journalist boarder in his Silver City home, Pat Garrett, and Lou Wallace. A fictional adolescence has Billy sent at 14 to a New York Children's Aid Society to live with a William E. Antrim, who marries a Catherine with no last name, moving with her and her son Joseph to Silver City, where she dies of TB. There, Billy's Chinese laundry theft occurs, followed by his Arizona Windy Cahill killing, though he's erroneously arrested instead of escaping. Getting to Lincoln County, Billy is hired by John Tunstall, though as a gunman instead of a ranch hand, and the Murphy-Dolan conflict begins. Erroneously, Murphy hires McSween to collect a $10,000 life insurance policy on his dead partner Fritz, though the hiring was really by Fritz's siblings. McSween is erroneously claimed to withhold the money from Murphy, though he really delayed payment to the siblings while seeking more heirs in Germany. Murphy then erroneously orders Sheriff Brady to seize Tunstall's cattle as partial payment. In reality, the significance of the embezzlement case is missed. It was a malicious prosecution by the Santa Fe Ring to chase away or kill opponents, McSween and Tunstall. Tunstall was added to the case by lying that they were partners. Ringite Sheriff Brady was used to attach, meaning appraise, their property for debt payment if McSween lost his grand jury case in April of 1878. Tunstall's cattle were not seized. They were just part of the attachment. Tunstall's February 18, 1878 murder is garbled as herding his horses from his ranch to Lincoln to confer with Brady while traveling in a buckboard along with his gunmen, including Billy. In reality, the horses were immune to attachment, and Tunstall was on horseback and merely taking them to his Lincoln corral. As to Tunstall's murder, they have him approaching Ruidoso and being attacked by Jesse, misspelled, Evans and his men, after Tunstall's men pursue wild turkeys. In reality, Ruidoso didn't exist yet, and the assassins were Brady's possemen using outlaw Jesse Evans. Afterwards, erroneously, Tunstall's men organized as regulators for vengeance. In reality, they were deputized by Justice of the Peace John Wilson to arrest Tunstall's murderers because Ringite Sheriff Brady shielded them. Ringite Governor S.B. Axtell then illegally outlawed them by proclamation, so they continued to make arrests as regulators. Their motive wasn't vengeance, it was legal justice against Santa Fe Ring murderers. Total misinformation continued. Sheriff Brady is killed for vengeance instead of reality of the regulators saving McSween from murder by him later that day. The regulators' Blazers Mill killing of Buckshot Roberts had them seeking sanctuary there when it was actually a Ring stronghold and he was resisting arrest as a Tunstall murder posseman. The Lincoln County War, occurring for no apparent reason, is reduced to a scene of cowardly McSween barricading himself in his Lincoln house with regulators to await an attack by Dolan. Sheriff Pepin requests McSween's surrender for what is unclear, and a 5-day battle occurs involving Fort Stanton soldiers. On July 19th, Pepin's deputies set fire to McSween's house, and the occupants flee. McSween is killed, and Billy the Kid becomes the regulator's head, which he never was. The Dolan peace meeting the next year is one with Jesse misspelled Evans instead, and ends with Evans and Dolan's murdering Houston Chapman, wrongly called Susan McSween's attorney against the Dolan faction, when Chapman was actually prosecuting Fort Stand Commander N.A.M. Dudley for enabling the Lincoln County War's murder and arson. Things only get worse. Governor Lew Wallace is fictionalized as upset by Murphy-Dolan beef contracts and Chapman's murder, so he meets with Billy the Kid to break up, quote, the corrupt faction. In reality, Billy initiated the meeting to exchange his testimony against Chapman's murderers for his pardon. But the pardon bargain is garbled as only for the Brady killing instead of his Brady, Hinman, and Roberts indictments. Billy testifies and gets Evans and Dolan indicted, but erroneously, District Attorney Reinerson jails him. In reality, Billy was already in his sham jailing for the pardon bargain. He was never jailed by Reinerson. This fictional Reinerson jailing is then mixed up with Billy's Santa Fe jailing in 1881, so Billy is portrayed as writing his jail letters to Wallace, then escaping. In reality, Billy just walked out of his 1879 sham jailing. Billy's 1880 killing of Joe Grant is caused by an argument when it was really Billy's self-defense response to Texas Joe Grant's gunslinger attempt to shoot him in the back. Ignorant of Billy's Secret Service pursuit, Jameson and Bean have Pat Garrett's 1880 sheriff's election leading to the White Oaks posses attacking Billy and his group at the Great House Ranch, where Jim Carlisle is killed and Billy blamed. Billy then hides in Fort Sumner, where Garrett ambushes him and his so-called gang, killing Tom O'Folliard. For the Stinking Springs capture, shot Charlie Bowdry, mistaken for Billy, falls dead at the Rock House instead of stumbling into the huge ravine. Billy's Messiah trial is only for the Brady killing, and the Buckshot Roberts trial before it is missed. The judge, Warren Bristol, is called a Murphy-Dolan man when he was a ring-eyed. For Billy's jailbreak, there's a conventional history of the gun hidden in the outhouse, Deputy Bell shot by Billy on the stairs, and Deputy Ollinger shot outside. A fiction has Billy betrayed to Pat Garrett by Peter Maxwell, angered by, quote, the outlaw's affections for his servant girls. Jameson and Bean, like Brushy, Morrison, and Sonneshin, didn't know about Billy's sweetheart, Paulita Maxwell. For the July 14, 1881 Maxwell bedroom shooting, Billy starts his death walk from Celso Gutierrez's house. He goes to the side of beef on the Maxwell house's porch, where deputies Thomas McKinney and John Poe are erroneously lurking. Then he enters the bedroom. Jameson and Bean got the beef beside bedroom era from Brushy's parroting of Sonneshin's prompt era that the side of beef was beside the bedroom when it actually hung at the opposite side of the house. Jameson and Bean call the night dark, which revealed Brushy's fatal moon era since there was a bright moon. That moon era was discussed in Talk 67 linked below. That ends Jameson's and Bean's so-called conventional history. It proves only that they had the needed level of ignorance to be impressed by the Brushy Bill hoax. The talk to follow presents W.C. Jameson's and Frederick Bean's beefed-up Brushy Bill with an expanded fake family tree he never dreamed of.